So today, well, actually, my dog graduated from puppy class, which was great. So um, he was tied for the most amount of dog push-ups, which I didn't know was a thing. But it's the sit command, the down command, and then the stand-up command, and he had 14 in 1 minute. So pretty impressive.
That's awesome. I'm actually going to keep that in the podcast. I was like, what's a dog push-up? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball podcast. Definitely playing a bit of catch-up here with this recap of Worlds and what took place the weekend of October 12th. And here to help me do so with this segment is Emily Hotz. Emily, thanks for hopping on again and being on here.
No problem. My pleasure.
And it is Hotz, right? Probably should have
Yes,
asked.
hot.
Okay.
Yep, so easy. People like to put an L and say Holtz or Hutz or Hutz, but super easy, just Hotz.
Yeah, I'm guilty of that. And I think I even said Holtz before we recapped Nationals. I was like, wait a minute, there's no L there.
That's all right.
Well, awesome. Well, we were kind of talking offline, just like, we're drawing from memory. I had the best of intentions to follow everything, but I just fell off the face of the earth after Thursday. So kind of just want to just dive into it and just what are your biggest takeaways from Worlds? Like, what was it like? Let's just start there.
Well, it was my first Worlds experience ever, so going into it, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but and I wouldn't say I'm someone who has this huge amount of USA pride and like cheering for my country in all these places, but I got to say at Worlds, I've never felt more USA pride in my life. It definitely was like, here I am against the greatest dodgeball players in the entire world with people on my team who I know. And I'm getting closer with as the week goes on, and just kind of cheering for us and supporting us was a really, really cool experience. So I had a great time. I met a lot of people from other countries. It's definitely unique, and I know a bunch of people who are like, yep, we're just going to Worlds every single year, whether we're on the team, on the alternates, whatever, and I can definitely see why.
Yeah, I hear you on the going full America. Like I'm kind of the same way. But then when it comes to dodgeball, I get super like USA better win, and like just I don't know, like even though I couldn't watch, I was really hoping for obviously gold medals across the board, and also first of all, congratulations.
Yeah,
Almost
thanks.
glossed over that small little detail, but had you followed any of the like the world's events previous to dodgeball?
Not that closely. I wasn't even really watching that much USA dodgeball video until I was gearing up for the combine and sort of studying the techniques and play styles in the other countries. And also the rules are quite different with the 20-minute halves and the sudden death rules. So, but other years I really hadn't watched other than kind of looking at who won and who got the medals. So this was my first experience, really.
Gotcha. And what made you decide to even pursue playing and making the team?
Um, in the last few years, I finished graduate school, I finished my postdoc internship, and I am now just sort of in a full-time job position, which is a lot less work than all of the other things. So I've had a lot more free time to commit to going to the gym and playing dodgeball, practicing. I've gone to a lot more tournaments over the last year or so, and getting ready to go to Sin City this year, which I'm very excited
Oh,
about
nice.
for the first time. So I don't know. I think I've just had a lot more time to commit to dodgeball, and that was recognized since I was invited to the combine. And then I just had a good combine weekend, which was also pretty cool. So
Very
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I know, and I made this thread earlier when we last talked, but definitely want to dive more into like your dodgeball background and where you came from and style and all that good stuff. But for the sake of rabbit holes, as I'm really bad at this, that's cool. So, I mean, you got to experience this from, Team USA Dodgeball being announced to how the players are going to be formed to the combine to, the end product, which was the gold medal. Were you Were you at the? I think was it Tuesday night, like the welcome reception?
It was Monday night.
Monday, man.
Yeah, it was the opening ceremonies were Monday, and then there was a bar night, and then I think Tuesday was practice, and then there was another cocktail party, and then there was round robin, and then round robin, and then elimination. Yeah, it was it was a whole week off from work, so
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was getting at. So, like, just from the very beginning, when it was announced, like in October, it just seems like they really pulled all the stops out for making this amazing impression and setting the tone. And talking to Jake about it, just making sure that they make the best front possible. Do you feel like you were treated to that since you got to experience all of it? Like,
Yeah, I think they did an awesome job. I can't even imagine how much work goes on behind the scenes, but it was really cool to see all of the courts set up. They looked really great. All of the countries' flags were hanging up, which also looked good. There were like player trailers, which had like air conditioning and bathroom, and it's where we like got all of our jerseys, which was pretty cool. And I think tying in the whole Hollywood theme, there were like stars on the ground with all of the team players' names on them, which was also such like a cool small detail to throw in there. So I think they did a really good job.
that's awesome. See, that's kind of what I was hoping to cover. Is there's tons of footage out there. I think even like David Tate's like supplied some awesome commentary. So like people that actually want to see how the play went, it's out there. But I wanted to like kind of capture things like that. So you also said there were like team trailers. Like, did USA have one?
It was just like a general female trailer
Oh, I see.
and male trailer. So, um, but yeah, it was nice. Went in there at one point to get all of my gear, change into my jerseys, and then also at one point just to like take a breather. It's a long, long time to be around so many people and at such a high level of cheering, and it was a good place to chill out for a few minutes.
That's awesome. So have you had a chance to like decompress from everything and get back to normal life?
Mostly, I'm still having some trouble with the time change because, it's 3 hours, which isn't even that much. It's 3 hour time difference. So, 3 hours plus we were staying up until like the last night. I was up until the bar closed, and then I had to pack, and I think I ended up going to sleep around 3:30 a.m. And then my flight, I had to get up at like 5:45. So the last few days there were so exciting. We were on such a high, and not a lot of sleep, but trying to slowly, settle back into the work life.
I can only imagine. I mean, you guys won like the biggest event there is out there. So like, how do you even how do you not party? How do you not stay up? How do you not like be jazzed about that and take a while to decompress and go back to regular life?
Right, right. It was definitely cool. And I only told one person that I worked with, the director of my group practice, that where I was going, and he actually watched all of it.
Nice.
And he like sent an email out to all of the other clinicians that because I'm a child therapist, and I guess they all had tuned in and watched the ceremonies, and it was pretty cool. I guess it just got more people interested in dodgeball, which is what we strive to do.
Yeah, it's definitely what we need for it to elevate and eventually get to Olympics and just keep building off of that. How did how'd you guys like all come together? So I mean, you had how many practices would you say were available for all of you guys to mesh and develop that synergy?
So that's probably it's a really difficult thing to do. And especially as an East Coast player, I was the only East Coast player on the team or in the alternates. And then there was, I think, three people who weren't like Californian, close by LA people. So most people have been playing together for years, and then there was a lot of repeats from previous USA team players before. So for me, the only time I really got to practice with USA team members was at the combine, and then at the practices on was it Tuesday was the first team practice, but um, partly because I couldn't make the team practice that was the weekend or two before Worlds. Most people got out for that, but I was unable to make it, unfortunately.
See, so it was kind of it obviously helped that a solid amount of people were still West Coast heavy. I think what you had some Arizona people, so that's a 5 hour drive, so that's not too bad. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, I was curious, like with you and Kat not being from the West, like how that helped or not helped, but just how it happened that you take all these individuals and produce, the championship team. So, I mean, imagine in the future, hopefully practices will be a lot easier for you guys, and I'm just curious to see like how that's going to play out because it's a tall order to just gather everybody and be like, okay, now go win and play against these other countries and do your best. Um,
Right, exactly. It's me, it was Kat, it was Paige, and
sorry, Paige.
Ashley, although Ashley has recently moved. But, there's a solid amount of us that weren't necessarily from that area. But I think the round robin gave us enough time to start gelling, to figure out which rotations were working, who worked well with who on the court. And then by the time we got to the elimination bracket, I think we were really in our groove.
You guys are fine tuned. I would say so. Um, yeah, so I got to watch one match and that was against Australia, and I think that might have been the first one on Thursday. Wednesday or
Yes,
Thursday.
that was our first round robin game.
Yeah, so you guys lost that one. I think it was. Do you remember the score by any chance?
I think it was like 7-5 Australia, but something around there.
Yeah, there was like
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right.
I think there was a point where like towards the middle, it looked like you guys were gonna come back and take the victory, but then it seemed like it kind of just started to slip away from you guys. Now obviously, so like round robin was basically how you guys came together and figured out your groove and whatnot. But did that put a bad taste in your guys' mouth, or did you guys say whatever? It's just round robin. We'll move on to the next one. Like, do you remember like how you rebounded from that?
Yeah, that was a strong one. I think we were um, surprised at how it went, but also not surprised because Australia is a good team. They came in strong. I felt like they were just closing the games. They were making a ton of catches, good plays. Even when we thought we were like, okay, we could wrap this up. Like we have strong players in still, but they just kind of came through. I think I don't think it got us down. I think it was like, okay, here we are. We're at Worlds. We kind of have to step up our game. The level of competition here is just so strong. And then, throughout the rest, it went really well for us.
Yeah, well, I was I was worried and wondering if that would in any way like kind of put you guys off. But as I've talked to several other players already, it's like the better ones just kind of shake it off and don't let that impact them. They don't carry that with them for the rest of the event. Aside from Australia, like what were some of the tougher countries that showed up that you can remember?
Canada definitely was a really, really strong team, and they we did a little bit better against them, I think, during round robin actually, and then when we faced them in the elimination bracket, I felt like it was some of the most exciting dodgeball. Like I was like, I don't know which way this is gonna go. Canada sort of has this, I would say similar to USA, but like I feel really confident swagger. It was just like two teams against each other that were so confident that they're so good and like could win this that it could have gone either way, but we just pulled it together in both cases. But they have such a strong team.
Swag, that's a good way to put it. I got that impression too watching them. Like I like these guys are contenders. Like they'll probably be top three easily. And I think like what were the standings? They weren't
Yeah,
actually.
they ended up going against Australia for the bronze, and it was a really close game. I can't remember the score, but I mean, both of those teams are just so strong that it was just kind of who's in the groove this game.
Right. Um, kind of wanted to dive into the brackets a little bit, but I also want to make the mention that I guess Malaysia was looking for a three-peat. So they had been like the favorite team to win. Do you think is that fair to say? Like, were you guys thinking Malaysia's the team we gotta take control of, or was it everybody?
Um, I think we were probably most worried about Malaysia just given their performances other years. But given the way that both Australia and Canada played against us, they were definitely people we wanted to look out for. But going into it, Malaysia was on the top of our mind.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we can probably talk about that with men's, but I wonder if that was the same with them as well. And then I was reading the comments on because I got to catch the last 4 5 minutes of the championship game, and I think you guys won like 8-5. Like you pretty much had like the last minute was just Team USA won. I even think everybody like stormed the court already and had to go back and
Yeah.
like restorm the court again.
Yeah.
Do you remember much of that match? Like just how like did you guys just start off the gates like come out swinging and already dominate, or was it a battle? Like how did that last match go?
Yeah, it was, if I recall correctly, I think we won the first three games in a row. And I
Nice.
that just put us in this place of like, okay, even though, even if they come back a few, we have this pretty big buffer at this point. And I think we maintained the lead the entire time. So it was just a really good way to start it. It made us feel really confident and solid going into it. And like I said, by then I think they ended up changing the rotation a little bit of the players. So I think they just really keyed in on the players that were working well together. So it was a good match. I do recall sort of like feeling super excited. People started rushing, and then we're like, wait, 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 we have to play this out, even though there's no way that they can come back at this point. Just kind of going by the rules.
Yeah, the so I was listening to Bill Fisher's commentary, and he's the one that mentioned the three-peat upset, and also he's like, well, there's still dodgeball that needs to be played out, and it was all for pride at this point, and that's gotta feel good though. Like, just you already know you've won. This isn't like best 2 out of 3 where this final match will dictate who wins. It's no, we're pretty much as long as we don't completely, crap the bed, it's ours. What was that like? Just hearing people chanting USA and just being in that moment. Do you remember what that was like for you?
I mean, definitely. Like, I just got the tingles when you said
The
that. Like
tingles.
the goosebumps. Yeah, it's just feeling that connected to USA and like we are the top 15 female dodgeball players in the country, in the world, because we're winning at this point. It's just a really cool feeling, and we have so much support in the crowd. I mean, we had some awesome fans that were super dressed up, face painted, wigs on, just like starting all these cheers. It was a really cool experience to be a part of.
Yeah, I can imagine. Have you played dodgeball since then, by any chance?
I've played Monday night, just like rec league foam, but they're squishier balls. They're not regulation balls. And it's funny. It's a social league, so I'm not playing it as seriously. But at one point, I think it was like 3-1, and then I like made this crazy block, and then a catch, and then a hit, and then I won the game, and everyone started cheering USA.
Nice.
It was awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, did the balls come slower at that point? Because I mean, with elite, that'll always happen. Like, you go from an elite tournament to regular play back at home, and it's like, man, this ball's taking forever to get to me, and you kind of have that. There's like heightened powers, I guess. But sounds like that was the case for you. Like you just wiping out teams by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. It was just I just had that feeling and went with it, and yeah, it was awesome.
That's really cool. I was gonna ask, like, so you mentioned Sin City, which will be a blast. It's like, I think it's gonna be like my fifth time going, and I just I'm always sad when it's over. I'm like, well, got to reset the clock now. 364 more days. But are you going to participate in anything else in the meantime between now and I guess in City or the next Elite season?
I don't think so. I think it was like national, worlds, and then just kind of like coasting for a little while, which I think most of the dodgeball community does. We just kind of take this as like a little bit of a rest time and then ramp up again. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure I've got a bit of a break. Plus, it's the holiday season and the new year, so um, it'll be good to take a little bit of time to recover.
I'll say, and just savor that metal and polish it and talk to it and just enjoy, as you said,
Exactly.
being on top right now. That's got to feel amazing. What is there one single event aside from winning that you remember the most that you were just like super excited to be a part of, or you'll remember forever? Kind of more tingles, I guess.
I think just the cheering in general. I think watching the boys play and cheering for them was a really awesome experience too. Because being on the court, I mean, I was doing shagging most of the time since I was an alternate and not activated, unfortunately. But so being on the court, looking for the balls, shagging the balls, I'm not as 100% in it as you are just on the sidelines watching. So watching the boys play and cheering for the boys, and I was sitting with some of the girlfriends of the players as well. That and plus we were behind the Australian. They call themselves the Australian drinking team. They like bought out the courtside seats with the bottle service, and they were probably the loudest cheers there. But being a part of that was pretty awesome too.
That's awesome. So there's bottled service there.
Yep, there
Oh
was
man.
one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. There was eight like courtside seats with like they had these like black curtains around them, and they had people bringing drinks and
Oh my
mixers.
goodness.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That's so cool, man. Freaking Jake, putting that together, like just doing the treatment. Oh man, I'm so jealous I didn't make it. Like that's I don't know for some reason like pretty much every single tournament I've ever been to, I played in. So I never really got to go to one as a true spectator. And I realized this when I was watching Bells, and like it just brought a new sense of excitement for the game and appreciation, and just not having anywhere to be. Like I can watch whatever match I wanted to. And so I was like super excited for Worlds, and I found out I couldn't make it. I was like, oh, this sucks. Like I'm so
Yeah.
excited to spectate, but I can't wait for next year already. Just watching like all the videos and comments and seeing all the photos and whatnot. But oh man, I was gonna ask something else about the setup. I was gonna say, did the fact that you knew you were gonna be watched impact how you played or prepared at all? Like, did that weird you out that people from all over the world are watching?
I definitely was thinking about that while I was even just like standing on the sidelines. I was like, there's a camera on me and I'm being live streamed somewhere. Like, I shouldn't like pick my nose or something. I was definitely thinking about that. But, since I wasn't activated and didn't play during any of the matches, I feel like there was a little bit less stress and less anxiety, which in a way is a silver lining to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's same. I can't get over like just what it must feel like though, just to be like that. That's what's going on right now in the world of dodgeball. It's right there in LA, and just watching people absorb and take part of it. It's got to be really incredible. Were you part of that meme that with like Mark's holding the sign? Speaking of
Oh
people
my
watching you.
god. Yes, it's a horrible picture of me. I'm like standing in front of him, and they picked the one where I'm like blinking and like looking down. So, oh my god, it's horrible. And
Yeah,
Cat's in it too. And Cat's like, oh my gosh, why did they pick that picture?
that's incredible. I think I gotta pull it up right now on my phone. But I think I made a comment like, was it? I said like Emily is not impressed, or I said
Oh
something
my
like,
god, dude, I didn't see that. That's awesome and very true.
yeah, I definitely. I'll have to send it to you or tag you in it. But I was like, yeah, Emily's not impressed. And then somebody, I think it's Sergio Leone's like, neither is Kat. And it was just like, you guys look so unimpressed with what's going on,
It was
which is
probably like some intense moment or after we had like lost a point or something, because otherwise we were just like cheering. My like fist was in the air all the time. And like, of course, they picked that one picture. It's
the one
okay.
time you're not doing anything.
Exactly.
Of course. Yeah, I got to find that. That meme, by the way, it just cracks me up. I'm like, oh, please let somebody, and they're already doing it perfect. Like, they're already inserting comments there.
Yeah.
Oh man. Kind of want to go back to what you're saying about like when you guys were rooting for Team USA, because every time I would see either you guys playing or the men playing, it would seem like there was a following of support from both men's and women's supporting each other. So I thought that was really cool. Just seeing that everybody's bought in, as you said earlier, like we're all here for to represent our country and support each other. Was there anybody that you kind of relied on or kind of just helped you along this path of hopping on Team USA and getting this far?
I think all of the alternates for the women's team came together a lot, which was really cool. I mean, all of you, Team USA, we definitely came together, and it was good get to know some of these um, players that I had never really even some of them spoken to before. East Coast, West Coast, there's not a ton of overlap other than nationals. So it was really great to get to know everyone, but us alternates really bonded together and we're like, okay, how can we help the team as best as possible, and just like great shagging, good job, nice job. So we were definitely supportive and joking around with each other, and then just trying to help the players out as best we can, just trying to bring them up if they were down or, mad at themselves for not making the best play, just trying to turn their attitude around and trying to be positive. And like you said, there was a lot of support from the men's team who were always following us around, cheering for us, and vice versa. We just, no matter what, we're watching their games, cheering for them. It was definitely a lot of support.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say like I keep going back to like the whole like journey because even as an alternate that you said you weren't activated, you still played a huge role, and you weren't. You didn't just like hop on, like some teams will be like, we need a body because, our last guy got hurt or whatever. And now anybody that can be like, you were selected and you engaged in the practices and whatnot. So it definitely doesn't take away from the accomplishment of the team as a whole. And I think that's what I really liked was just the amount of buy-in that everybody had. And so that's kind of where I was going with that comment earlier. But do you have to try out next year? Like, has it been discussed like what happens now? For the next Team USA, or do you guys like hold your slots, or do you know how that works?
That's a great question. I don't think that anything is guaranteed. I would say maybe other than like a combine invite would be my guess. And I've also heard rumors already that they're going to have fewer alternates next year than they did this year, which I agree with. I think this was the first time that they had this many players selected for Team USA, and even if they activated as many people as they could, there still would be extra people. So some of the feedback that I gave was that they should really only accept as many people as could potentially be activated. And then even if the players are sitting and not necessarily going in for the entire rotation, they still would get some play time. But in terms of next year, I think people are just still relishing in the fact that the USA got gold for women, silver for men's, and I haven't heard anyone talk about next year's Team USA yet.
Okay, I might have to calm down then.
Although I'm like, I hope I can actually make the team next year. I just don't think people are quite there yet.
Yeah, I definitely need to relish it and enjoy the victory and the accomplishment. And I feel like it's from what Worlds used to be, or at least what Team USA's involvement used to be, and how the team was made without trying to get into the controversy or whatever. I feel like this is a much better presentation of the whole thing, and it's really exciting. And everybody that was a part of it should be patting themselves on the back and just hopefully recharging so they can do it again next year. But I think you answered my question too. Like, even if you had to try it again, obviously you would. For sure.
Definitely would try out again for sure. And I feel like seeing seeing the play and seeing all of the USA team players that were activated and playing, I do feel like I learned a lot from them and I saw a lot of strategy and I sort of feel like I know what the selection committee might be looking for that I didn't give them this past combine and I would share, but I feel like I'd be giving secrets away. So
Nice. Very cool and totally understandable. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so strategy. So the were there any teams? And I meant to ask this one earlier, but were there any teams that like had or brought a style of dodgeball that you've not seen yet? Like, I mean, I know it's foam, and I know that it's the rules are different. But was there any strategies that I've never seen this before, or anything that like really took you by surprise in terms of like how other teams play dodgeball or other countries?
I guess Malaysia probably comes to mind for that for two reasons. One, excuse me. One of the reasons is they get really small. Their players, I don't know how, but they like hide themselves so well behind a ball and they like sit in the corner right near the line and they just have that ability, whereas I feel like you look at our team and we're not necessarily getting super small on the ground and trying to hide behind a ball, which for them worked out a lot of the time. But we do a lot of jumping and that sort of thing. And then the other thing that stood out about the Malaysian team, I actually can't remember if the women did this, but definitely the Malaysian men team. They had a tendency to sort of throw balls up in front of them so that if a ball was coming towards them, it would hit that ball and then it would be a dead ball and they couldn't get out. So
Huh.
this was done in two ways that I saw. One way was with the balls they were holding, like if they had a ball in each hand, they would just let go of it just before the ball hit them. And then the other way that I saw is if there were three balls that they had on their side, they would hold one ball in each hand and squeeze the third ball in the middle and then sort of lift their hands up to throw the third ball up in front of them so that it would hit that ball. So I had never really seen that before. That was pretty interesting. And I'm not sure it worked out a lot of the time. I feel like half of the calls, the refs were like, okay, I guess it hit the ball and it was dead. But half of the time they said it was too close to tell if you actually let go or not. So we think that you're out.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I've honestly I've thought about doing that before, just like a out of reflex, just like a real quick, hey, let this ball hit the other one. But then if you miss, you kind of just gave up your only chance of like protecting yourself. So I've never really tried it. And with foam, I wouldn't even dare because when you're playing against people like Ketchum and Dylan, they can just teleport balls into you. It doesn't matter what you do.
Right.
But I wonder, I have to see if I could watch them, see if they do that successfully. But it must be a pain to ref. This could be frustrating.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how to figure out. It's like another one of those situations where instant replay would be super helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if that. I wonder if anybody's going to try to take that and use it on the U.S. side, and we'll start seeing that now. Now that I know to look out for it. So let's go ahead and let me just ask one more time, or see if was there anything else that stood out, like any plays or players, or just like really awesome things that we might not have covered or touched on that you can recall?
Well, there was definitely, I mean, USA had a ton of awesome catches. Like Ashley Cook had this one catch actually that I don't even think she was intentionally trying to catch it, but she caught it on like the side of her thigh, which was really cool. So that was an awesome catch. And then Kate Gong also had this crazy catch that I also don't think was quite planned. But so when she dodges, she sort of goes down on her belly, face down to the floor, and her feet sort of come up behind her like a scorpion kind of, which I know sounds a little weird. And so she did it at one point. I can't even remember who we were playing. Um, and the ball lodged behind her knees as her legs were kicking up behind her as she was face down on the ground. And she caught the ball, and everyone was like, "What the heck?" It was really funny. I hope there's a video of it somewhere.
Whatever, Kate. I'm not surprised, and that's kind of why I was like having a hard time throwing that question out there, because it's like you're looking at the nation's best. Like, did anybody do anything cool? Of course they did. Like, I'm sure that's all. It was just 3 days of people of the best doing what they're good at and what they're known for. But if a scorpion leg catch, that's new.
Yeah, right.
That's new, and also again just not surprising in any way, shape, or form from Kate. She's a freaking monster. I gotta see that
Yeah.
now. I hope
I,
that's
I wonder if she remembers it, and I sort of wonder if part of it was intentional. I would love to ask her at some point.
yeah. I mean, without talking to her about it, I would say possibly. I mean, if you're trying to deflect a ball and you're able to catch it, like some part of you was aware of what was going on. So I don't know. It'd be good to get inside her head and find out what's going on when she's making these amazing catches and just completely wrecking teams. I wanted to ask, I just thought of this too. What are you guys gonna like get tattoos or do anything crazy? Like like what men's did for 2015, I think.
I didn't
After
know they
the
got tattoos. That's awesome.
oh yeah, no, they was it 2014, 2015. Well, the last time the men's team won, they all got matching tattoos, and I think it was like nine, the number nine, or however many
Oh.
people were on the team. So they went, did something very like very sentimental like that. So I was curious if there was any talk of doing that, something like that for you guys, or how you're gonna like encapsulate the memory, or if anything like that had circulated.
I heard a few people sort of joking about it afterwards, saying, "Tattoos, tattoos. Are we gonna get them? Are we gonna get them?" And I think some people were more excited than others. And someone had made a joke like, "What would we get at Dodgeball?" And someone was like, "No, that would look like a pimple because it would just be like a red circle." And we're like, "Oh yeah, I guess that wouldn't be the best one." So I haven't really heard any definitive things that Team USA is gonna get, but we've got a lot of pictures, a lot of video, and a lot closer friendships, at least for me, not being on the West Coast. So definitely a lot of memories.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so did your friendship, Facebook lists like expand a little bit? Did you have people that you talk to from other countries now and like that to
Yeah, yeah,
establish?
definitely. I even like friended some people from, US, just West Coast people I hadn't necessarily had conversations with before, and some players from other countries, and traded my jersey, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but I had three people from other countries ask me for my jersey. So now I have a Malaysian jersey, an Australian jersey, and a Hong Kong jersey as well. So that's pretty cool. And
Nice.
I'll be wearing those around to dodgeball.
Man, dang it! I'm so bummed I didn't make it. That's an awesome haul there. You didn't know that swapping jerseys was a thing, or like that people in dodgeball did it?
I just didn't know like people in dodgeball did it at Worlds, and I didn't even bring all of my jerseys to the last day. I just didn't know to do that, but I brought them to the restaurant bar place we went after and ended up swapping with people. But people were swapping all sorts of things like sweatpants, leggings, like long sleeve shirts, hoodies. I mean, I was like, whoa.
So, some things I wouldn't want to swap if somebody's been sweating in it, but hoodies I can understand. That makes sense.
Yeah, we did get some pretty awesome Team USA hoodies. I've been wearing it like every day.
That's awesome. Must be nice because it's like 85 degrees out here, so I don't think we'll have a hoodie season the way things are
Oh my
going.
God. Yeah, it's like 30s and 40s already out here.
Yep, some people actually have winter. That's crazy. So yeah, so sorry, another question. So what's it like when people come up to you asking for your jersey? Like, what does that feel like?
It was really cool. It was definitely a compliment, and um, was more than willing to swap with them. I mean, I think I do have a cool last name, Hotz, so it's like, okay, yeah, I get why you'd want my jersey. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a good feeling And it's like, man, I definitely want to have jerseys from other countries too. Like, how cool is that? It's not really something you can just like go out and buy.
No, and the fact that it was given to like somebody that wore that just adds to the fact that it's just invaluable. You can't purchase that.
Right.
Very cool. I think that's all I got. Otherwise, I'm gonna start veering into just like getting to know you more and finding more about your dodgeball story and all that stuff, which I definitely want to do. Probably like in the earlier episodes of season 3. So I definitely want to reconnect then. But I think that's good for now. Unless there's anything else that you want to mention or anything else that might have come to mind.
Um, Not really. I feel like that's all I can remember.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I guess we can go ahead and end the segment there. Awesome. So that was, as we mentioned, just a real quick recap of the overall experience on Emily's perspective. Emily, thank you so much for hopping on and be willing to do that. Like I said, there's so much footage out there. If people really want to delve into who did what and what teams looked the best, I mean, just check out YouTube and rack up those views. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to the men's segment. Alrighty, so now I've got Dominic Borgia with me, and he's going to kind of help me kind of round out the rest of the recap from his perspective and kind of also provide what he saw from both men's and women's respectively. Dominic, thanks for hopping on, man, especially last minute. I really appreciate it.
Dude, thanks. I've been so excited. I've been really waiting to get on a podcast with you. So it's pretty cool. And I think, since I didn't play and I mostly watched, I think my perspective is going to be a little bit different than most people's that you might talk to about this. I can start with like just the layout. The layout when you first during the round robin games, there was 5 courts and it looked really nice. Like I don't know what floors they used, but like they were like these fake laminate floors, and they looked so good. They looked professional. And then when everything switched, and let me tell you, the most important thing that I'm going to tell you in this entire podcast is Team Australia brought it when it came to moving the courts and resetting up. There was more Australian people, fans, whatever, I don't even know all of them, that were there helping move the entire courts and redoing. They basically took the 5 courts, broke it down, and reset an entire new stage up for the final day. And all of the Australian people stayed. I was there till 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on East Coast time in LA.
Oh man, so it's
and I'm
for
like,
you.
Yeah, I'm dying. I'm like, I barely remembered the ride home. And those guys were like, they were dancing, they were singing. I was like, oh my God. There wasn't even that many American players there. There was a few from LA that were out there, but Australia, like as a whole, they brought it. And I was so impressed by that. I was like, man, I don't know what we would have done, because they had to bring in bleachers and set all those up. And those guys, they were like, originally told us, they're like, oh yeah, it's going to take us a couple hours. And I'm like, holy crap, it's going to take us a couple hours. And they just removed everything. And I was just like, wow, this looks really, really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think we covered it too much when I spoke with Emily. But like I remember seeing on Instagram just how awesome Australia was, and it looked like they were just setting up, I guess what you talked about, converting, the opening few days stadium into or court to just one. And that's all I've been hearing through Jake, through Grace, through some of the people that were there. Was just Australia was just so awesome. Just a great bunch of people to be around, and they're so helpful. So yeah, right out the gate, dude, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Oh, and you know what? Like sticking with like the people who came out, the crowd was insane. There was so many Australian fans, so many Malaysian fans, and so many USA fans. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like hearing, like they would get like a chant. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the recap live streams yet, but hearing the chant, all of a sudden people would be chanting for Malaysia, or somebody would be chanting, for Canada, and then like the US people would just drown it out.
Nice.
Like the crowd was great. I actually expected more U.S. local players to show up. Unfortunately, I guess a lot of players couldn't come. But like the crowd, like Tyler dressed up in like that huge muscle suit. I don't know if you saw a picture of that Tyler gear. It was so amazing.
No, I think
someone was dressed as Uncle Sam. It was great. The crowd was amazing.
Oh man.
And I'm gonna give a personal shout out. I really hope Hashimoto is listening, because his grandfather and his family helped me. So I'm going to give them a huge shout out. I actually had 3 cameras set up, and my back camera all the way in the top, I had to keep running up and down the stairs to check it. And his family actually watched my camera to keep making sure it was recording. And then another family, I don't know what player it was, but like their mom came, they're like, hey, the battery died, I don't know how to switch it. They brought my camera down and put it back up and pushed it back on to record.
That's awesome.
I was like, this community is so amazing. I just was so impressed by the quality and everything.
That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, in the last couple of episodes, there's been like, oh man, the dodgeball community's been like there's been complaints and whatnot, but there's also, I think, at its core, when it matters the most, you have solid people helping out, and they're just completely stellar and selfless, and that's awesome. And yeah, Elijah Hashimoto, did you get to see a lot of like was it Feed the Beast, like all those hashtags popping up? What was that about?
Oh yeah, well, during round robin, Mark actually like brought a whiteboard and was writing on the whiteboard, kind of like Ketchum did at Nationals. And so it was great. I tried to capture it as much as possible, but then like, people were having like air horns and, the big signs, and I don't know, I guess, you kind of got to do a little bit of respect to the other players, and it's a little distracting. So we tried to limit it after round robin, but it was really funny, and Mark was having a blast. Like, I don't think I've seen Mark smile so much other than watching people suffer for playing too much dodgeball.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear Mark was smiling. That poor guy.
Yeah, listen, all of those guys all work so hard. We are so lucky to have like all of the people like Jake and Mark and Glenn and Vince, and all of those people really like step up and help our dodgeball world. So I'm always grateful for those guys for stepping up.
Yeah, for sure. Especially not to plug not to toot my own horn, but like after the OG discussions that we've been having, thanks to Joseph Capella's suggestion, I think you can understand, or at least get a feel for like what life used to be like before people like Mark and Jay came along and helped and created dodgeball the way it is now. So yeah, I'll never have anything but gratitude for people that step up and do what they're doing. So,
well, I can tell you, I see. I don't like talking about dodgeball politics. I absolutely and utterly hate dodgeball politics. But I will tell you, this event was run so well compared to the other worlds that I went to.
Awesome. I was gonna ask. I was gonna bring that up. But let me back up just real quick. So initially, just to do some housekeeping. Initially, I announced that I was gonna most likely talk to, I think, Bill Fisher, Nick Victorian, and possibly Lucas to help kind of recap what happened. But because I've been so out of the loop and just discombobulated with what I had to do during that weekend, it was really hard to organize everything. So when I forgot what thread it was, but when you mentioned I'm available to record anytime, it's like those cartoons where that light bulb finally clicks. It's like, holy crap, I've had Dominic this whole time with everything that you've experienced. Like, why didn't you think of this like a year ago? Like, that's so far behind I am. So I just wanted
I literally have gone to almost every tournament, and I'm like, nah.
It's like, I've been here the whole time. So, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for, I guess, just being patient with me. But, so I kind of want to ask. So you said when you walk in, the the grandeur, for lack of better words, just hit you, right? Like it felt like you're in a professional stage or
Oh,
setting or
oh
venue.
yeah. It was this really huge studio in LA, LA Hangar Studio, I believe it was, and like just like the whole atmosphere was just completely different from like any other dodgeball tournament. Like you walk in and you're just like, wow, this is something special because it's not in a basketball court. It is not in some gym or an auditorium like the Fit Expos where it's like the fences. It's like this is a production studio. Like they filmed BattleBots there.
Hmm.
And
Seems oddly appropriate.
yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny you mention that because you remind me of like this weird sensation you get like when you walk in through any dodgeball venue. You're walking into, as you said, like a college basketball court, like something that's not there to exist just for dodgeball. But you walk into some place like Minneapolis. For me, I was like, this is amazing. This is a gorgeous venue. I don't even care that this has to do with like basketball and volleyball primarily. This feels like it can be converted to a wonderful dodgeball venue, and so it was. But like walking into something that was built intentionally for dodgeball, I haven't experienced that yet. So that's a point I'm really glad that you brought up. Without getting into the politics too much, I'm just gonna ask, like, how did that compare to when you walked into the WDA venue?
oh well, I will tell you, I actually did. I refed both tournaments because Jake desperately needed some people to help like line ref. Because time wise they started at 3 o'clock. A lot of the local players they had to work. I was working East Coast hours, so I refed both in New York and in LA.
Man.
And so I saw pretty much like the whole prospect of both sides. And by far, the one that just happened in LA was by far blows it out of the water. The other one was last minute in the gym. It wasn't very organized. The guy who runs our local league in New York, he was, basically like running everything, and like he was originally just supposed to help find like a location or two, and it was not as organized. And like the final venue where they actually ended up playing, the Hulu Theater, it was 2 courts. It was dark. I mean, it was cool to play at Madison Square Garden, like to actually sit in the theater and watch that. But I don't know, there was something just missing, and I know I might get a lot of sorry.
It's all good.
For you.
It's gonna happen. It was bound to happen.
It was bound to happen, but I might get some slack for this. But the flooring alone at Madison Square Garden, I took pictures of this because it blew my mind that we allowed it to happen. But like players were playing on a concrete floor where there were screws because it's a production theater. There's screws in the ground, like they taped over it for safety. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? I'm like, the players are playing on this, and I genuinely felt for their safety. I'm like, someone's gonna fall and land on this and get hurt. And the floors at the LA Hangar Studio where the LA Worlds was, there was those same concrete floors. Like I saw them. I saw the screws in the ground. But instead of letting players play on that, they got floors to go on top of that. So it looked professional. And I appreciated that so much. Not just for my own sake, but like for the players' sake. I'm like, you guys are getting quality floors. You're not just playing on concrete.
So it's just like complete attention to detail, and the small things like screws that are protruding from the court matter, and also so does not playing on concrete. Because that if you're over 30, that wears on the joints pretty bad. Like I remember I used to be able to play on concrete and think nothing of it, but the last time I tried, I was like, yeah, no more. And that's that's open gym. That's not even like league worthy, let alone a world stage. And I keep teasing that I do want to go into the full on WDA versus WDBF, and I know there's been a slow build to it, but it's just one of those things. It's like from my viewpoint, and maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but like I do not in any way want to criticize the players of WDA. Like, I understand they're representing the U.S. and I really wanted them to do as best as possible, and I appreciate their passion and want and support them just as much as I would WDBF. It's the way it's handled that drives me crazy, and that's where I feel like I want to discuss it. So
I agree. I 100% agree. I think that's where, like, just the organizational status, like the way that it's run. Like, I was given, like, for example, for me, for my documentary, I told them what I was doing, and I had like security guards like, no, you can't go film over there, and I'm like, what? Like, I was limited on where I could go at Madison Square Garden. Like, I couldn't go on the courts. Whereas at the WDBF Worlds, I could do whatever I want. And so, for my suggestion for you, if you do this panel, please put Alan on this panel, because Alan has spoken to Ed. He's like had the whole debate. I would love for his input on this, to maybe debate with some of the OG guys, because that would be an amazing debate.
So I've hinted towards this a few times, and he and I had a good hour and a half, 2-hour conversation of one OG from my perspective of how I've engaged, conversed, and how I know Ed Prentice versus what he was, modern day, for lack of better words. And before that conversation, I just wanted to go in freaking arms swinging, guns blazing, down with the WDBA, and in all kinds of ways that we from the West Coast hold that kind of grudge, I guess, for lack of better words. But he was able to kind of help me pull my head out of my ass, so to speak, and just kind of think about it in as objective way as possible. And then I talked to Jake, and I was like, oh no, I'm angry again. But then there's so I'm finding balance, and that's what I feel is kind of what I'm waiting on, is to have it in a very balanced, fair way. That's not just 80% anti-WDA, 20% meh. So I agree. Like, Alan, I feel is very good for that. And without giving too much and getting too far from WDBF, I'm hoping that the OG panel helps air out some of the grievances that we carry, and then by the time we get to that actual conversation, it's like almost like a clean slate. Like, everything nasty that we're supposed to let out is out, and then we can start talking about like the actual differences that matter. So yeah, man, I agree, and probably it'll be fun figuring out how we're gonna put that together. But
I could say too, like, I think I'm like Alan in the sense that I never, like, even at the Worlds, I didn't actually have any communication with Ed. I didn't have any grievances. I basically went in as somebody who's never been to WDBF and never been to WDA. Never had been any of those tournaments. I didn't really have any association. I went in thinking, okay, cool, we're going to play. Let me see what this is going to look like. And I was just like, okay. And then I go to the Worlds in LA, and I'm like, all right, now I've seen both aspects, and that's what I base it on. I don't base it on any of the past politics, because I wasn't there. I didn't experience it. I wasn't a player in any tournaments. I haven't been playing dodgeball nearly as long as some of those guys on the OG panel, and I can't really pass judgment on that. I can only pass judgment on what I see.
That's awesome. And so you're on. So it'll be you, me, and Ellen for sure. And then we'll figure out the rest. But that's perfect. Like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to air all the negativity that's been pent up for years, get it out, and then we'll have that. Okay, what do you guys see? Like, how does it compare for you guys? But yeah, I mean, don't mean to keep teasing it and throwing it out there, but that's just the rationale behind my brain and what's going on. But let's go back to WDBF and
yeah. Oh my God, so much good stuff about WDBF's Worlds. Like, international play is amazing. Like, I was recording one game, and half the time I was turning, watching another game, or like seeing what the crowd was going on. And there was, okay, so the one game that I'm going to tell you, the game that you guys, if anyone out there is listening to, wants to go back and watch, please go watch Worlds Court 3, Hong Kong versus Malaysia elimination game. It's at 1 hour and 50 minutes is about when it starts. The skill level that Hong Kong and Malaysia have is amazing. the guy was doing like I actually wrote down the time marks because I was so impressed because these games the score didn't show it because Hong Kong lost pretty bad, but each game went down to 1-on-1, and like it was some of the best 1-on-1 dodgeball I've ever seen. And one of the guys was doing like hand plant dodges, and I think during the
What?
Malaysia game with the U.S. that one of the same guys did like a belly flop in the air, and I was just blown away by the moves that these guys had. I'm like, holy cow! Uh, if you want to go watch some great dodgeball, go watch that game because that game was amazing.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was gonna read David Tate's really thorough and pretty awesome written recaps of the championship matches. I think he did like almost game per game, and the really cool comparison that he said is the differences in body types prove to be a result of the way these two different countries approach the game of dodgeball. For the USA, overwhelming firepower paired with a strong catching ability is the name of the game. However, for Malaysia, the style of play is all about speed, agility, and how quickly you can fire off an accurate solo counterattack. So, you know, we're used to seeing, we look at the lineup and it's just, as Tate's put it, overwhelming firepower, solid catching ability, and maybe the occasional need to dodge here or there. But then, do you kind of agree with that? With like when Malaysia brings speed, agility, and dodging, and like how did they match that you were able to see?
Yeah, Malaysia definitely they play with the dodging ability alone is a game changer. They play more strategic, I think, than most teams. These guys all practice probably together for years and months at a time, preparing for these games. And like watching, I want to say the women's Malaysia team, they had lost, and like they were just like the women were just in tears. And this is one of the things I was going to bring up. It's just the players like caring about each other for how much effort that these guys are putting into it. Like I was so impressed by that. And like Team Malaysia, like they came back, like they fought. We were up, I think I had it written down, I think we were up like 2 or 3-0 when all of a sudden they started coming back, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is gonna happen. And then all of a sudden it comes down to a final game, and I actually learned something from one of the USA women's team. I forget who told me this, but the way that they block in the no blocking is they kind of like block, but like they throw the ball and they let go of the ball as they're blocking. And I didn't notice that until like they pointed it out, and I'm like, that is interesting, because I did notice like when they had the 2 foam balls during no blocking, they would place the balls in front of them and it would be no blocking, so they wouldn't touch it. But if you try to throw at their knees where they can't catch, the ball would just block. And so they strategically countered what we were doing. They learned very quickly, because the other USA Malaysia game in round robin was also a 1-point game difference. And it's very interesting how Malaysia can adapt and change so quickly in a game style and a gameplay and learn your players. It also doesn't help that we stepped out of bounds a couple times, but you know, Malaysia themselves, like the practicing, the warm-ups, completely different warm-ups than I've seen most teams do.
Wow. Yeah. So Emily mentioned that blocking, and Tate's also talked about it, where it's probably really frustrating to ref, but valid. I mean, if you throw at me and I just like chuck my ball, whoops, I actually threw my imaginary ball into the mic. If I chuck my ball, you know, and it clears my hands and it hits yours, that ball, that's about as close to a block as you can get during a no blocking scenario. And when you talk about like adapting, like I wonder if they actually have drills where like, okay, no blocking, but they found a way to still incorporate some form of blocking. That's pretty incredible. And David Taves, he was explaining, and I'm probably gonna butcher his name. Sorry, man, if you're listening, but Pyong Shan Shi, was one of the, I think the guy that won that 1v1 against Ketchum, and he was notorious for like keeping 3 balls on him at all times, one in each hand, and then the other one would be on the ground directly in front of him. And when a throw would come, he would like with both balls pick that one ball up and kind of chuck it in the air, or just leave it there to deaden any throws that came his way. Do you remember watching that at all from him?
Oh, definitely. I definitely saw that. And one of the things that's really interesting about the style of play that they have is one of the rules, with Elite, you have to throw the ball in automatically. But their shaggers can hold on to the ball as long as they want. So the team strategically had players hold the balls and just wait for them to be ready to use that ball. So he always had an extra ball on the outside line. So once he did throw that ball, he could always still have 3 balls.
Was there a limitation to where a retriever could be?
Up to the middle line, like the normal middle line. But there was three retrievers up and down the sides and the back line. And let me tell you, those retrievers were some of the hardest working retrievers I've ever seen, especially Lynn and Canada. Oh my God, they were running all over the court. Cat, for our team, like they were just running to make sure that the players, like Malaysia, like when they needed that ball was like locked, loaded, and ready to go.
So, a couple of things. Because I think I saw Vince do this, and it was really awesome. But so in nationals, I think it was co-ed. He was about to. I think he must have known or just counted that he was going to get caught in. But the ball that he was waiting for, like the stray ball, kind of rolled in his direction, and it was, I want to say, like maybe 3/4 to halfway to the midline or to the attack line. And so as soon as I think maybe it was Tracy caught him in, he ran for that ball full speed, grabbed that ball, and before that guy even, his target, before he even realized what was happening, Vince is already running him down, and there's like maybe a 5 or 6 foot distance between the two. So he was just dead. And I wonder if you can strategize, like, hey, you have all the time in the world to hold that ball for me closer towards the middle line. When somebody throws at me and I come running, you can kind of just toss that ball to me or hand that ball off to me and give me that jump.
Essentially.
That adds so much more to the game and strategy, and it just makes the retrievers much more valuable. Like they're part of the team still. You may not be dodging and catching and whatnot, but you're teeing up your player, you're supporting, like you're arming your team. That's awesome. Have you ever played and this is the second point, have you ever played the old school Nintendo or Super Nintendo Extreme Dodgeball?
Yes.
So part of the team is people actually outside, and they're passing balls to each other and coordinating like how they're gonna hit the other player. I wonder if that's been incorporated in any way with these other countries that play dodgeball in that style. Might be stretching here, but I really want to see that more now. Because that just, again...
Yeah, well, I could tell you some teams didn't, like their ball retrievers, they weren't necessarily like, they were just there to get the ball. They didn't have the strategy. So right. I want to say it was Team New Zealand. One of their ball retrievers I was actually filming the game, and I don't normally talk to the players or talk to people while I'm filming the game. And I told them, I'm like, if you want to help your team, go closer to the line. They need the ball over there. Don't stand over here. I'm like, don't stand in the back corner with me. Go stand up front. You're going to help your team more. They lost 2 balls that way to the other team.
Right.
I don't remember which game it was, but it was on court 1. And I'm like, guys, you got to go over there. You can't be over here. I'm trying to help you, and I'm not even playing.
Yeah. I'm probably going to ask this, but in your whole year of watching dodgeball, do you feel like you've picked up like nuances like that people might not realize?
100%. I paid attention. I've learned more about playing dodgeball this year by not playing dodgeball than I did actually playing dodgeball, because you know what it is? You miss those things.
Right.
You miss those little tiny details, like someone standing and like basically Liberty playing you a dodgeball, and watching somebody block and like toss the ball. You miss that. You don't see it. You don't pay attention to that. And so as an outsider looking, you kind of like look and you're like, oh, I get it now.
That might be one of the next steps people need to take if they want to ascend to the next level, is actually taking some time off and watching versus playing constantly. Because like I will always be very well aware of where balls are when Vince is next to catch, to be caught in, just because of what I saw reffing. Actually, no, I was just spectating at that one. But man,
because you got to remember, when you're filming, you're only getting that angle.
Right.
If the say the GoPro or whatever, you're putting it on the edge of the court, you're only getting that one angle. If you're not there and you're not actually like paying attention to what the players are doing, you're going to miss it. And I think that's what gives Malaysia a little bit of, they have to play more strategic. Although, let me tell you, some of those guys, Hong Kong and Malaysia, I don't remember which team it was, but they were throwing the ball really hard. And like it was from one end of the court, like they were in the back corner and they were chucking it, and I was on the other end, and I'm like, wow, that was thrown pretty hard.
That has some sauce on it, as the youth probably say.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Malaysia and Hong Kong was one of the notable matches. What other ones did you see that were just like, you need to go back and watch this?
So, well, there's a couple, I actually have notes, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on, besides just the games, were like some of the players. Argentina played Italy. And I don't know if you had a chance to watch that match, or if anyone listening's watched that match, but that was on court 1. It was an elimination game. And Argentina kept fighting back. And they had not won a single game the entire tournament. And they were within 1 point every single time. And they ended up losing, I want to say, 8-6. And like the players were just crying. They had so much heart. And like, other teams like Team Mexico came over and was talking to them, trying to like consult them, and Italy was over there like telling them, hey, you guys did great. And I'm just like, wow, I'm like, you guys, like, that's so awesome that these players, like, they just lost and they're all going out of their way to go talk to someone and be like, dude, you guys really, it's their first year there, and it was Italy's, I want to say, their second year. And like for them to just go and be like, hey, you guys gave it your all, you just don't realize it. Yeah. That was pretty awesome. And going on to like other, I know I touched on the retrievers, but some of the impressive players, like one of the fan bases that I thought, I actually had to look up his name because I didn't know, it was number 17 on Canada, Jason, I'm going to butcher this name, Mergler. He had, it's Mergler, and he had such a fan base. Team Australia was actually his fan base, and I kept getting confused. Yeah, no, seriously, Team Australia had like these jackets of with his picture on the back.
Oh my god!
and I've seen something like that at the other Worlds with a European player named Steve, and I actually bought one of those shirts that said "In Steve We Trust."
Oh yeah, okay. I'm that's really fresh in my mind. I have to investigate that some more.
So Jason like had this whole crew, and I didn't even realize, like, half the time I'm like, man, you guys have some like great players on your team, and they're like, dude, we're Australian, we're not Canadians. I'm like, what? I didn't even realize I was talking to the Australian team and the Australian fans, and they were wearing Canadian stuff, and I'm like, oh, I thought you were with Canada, sorry. And they just were big supporters of Canada, and I was like, for another country to represent a different country, I was like, that's pretty awesome that you're here just to see some amazing dodgeball. Yusuf, number 14 on the men's Canadian team, he was really good. There was an Australian player. I didn't have a chance to get to go back and look at the footage, but one of the players had told me one of the fans said, oh, he wasn't playing, and then they ended up putting him in, and I think he made a difference. He had like black hair, and he was wearing like a rubber band in his hair, so it looked, I don't remember, but he was throwing some heat on that on the Australia-Canada game. On the women's side, I'm gonna give a lot of props to some of the women's players on Canada, the O'Quintons, O'Quinn, Queen twins, and Barry. Those they had these wicked underarm throws
Huh.
that were like like the softball pitch,
Right.
and they had some heat behind it, and I was very impressed by some of those throws. Um, I was also very impressed with the women's team Australia, where Canada was up 5-0 in the third place game, and Australia won 8 games in a row to win. And I was like, holy cow. And then the Canadian men's and the Australian men's almost had the same thing happen right after that. And I was like, wow. I'm like, you literally couldn't pay to watch better dodgeball, to watch such an intense game that a team just like pounds back and doesn't give up. You're down 5-0. I'm telling you, if I'm down 5-0, I'm just like defeating myself.
How many people are going to give up at that point?
Right. And these guys, the women and the men, they powered back, and I'm like, you guys have my respect anytime.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's do or die at that point. I mean, I'm only drawing off, nationals and elite, but like when you're representing your country, I wonder if you just find some reservoir of fortitude that just pulls you through moments like that, where you just give it your absolute all and go further than you thought possible, and you just refuse to quit. I mean, as you said earlier, Team USA had a 3-0 lead against Malaysia, and they just bounced right back and said, nope, we're not done. Going back to players, I saw Jeff Snow from Canada, and I remember him from back when for season 1 from 3 years ago with Brett. I just saw a clip of Jeff finish off. It was 1v2. I think this was nationals in 2014, 2015. And he just, it could have been 2015 because Team USA won. Anyway, I'll have to go back. But he left-hand, right-handed, like he left-handed, I think, the guy to his right, and right-hand through the guy to his left. It was just bam, bam. And it was like, it was just so sexy. It was so cool looking. And then as a result, we had to talk to him and just talk about Canada dodgeball just real briefly. Did he stand out to you at all, or do you remember him? I remember seeing him.
Yeah, that? I do remember seeing him. The watching the crowd and having the crowd that made Jason stand out a little bit more. But I do remember watching, because I did my homework before coming on the podcast. I was watching the games this afternoon at work, and yeah.
That makes me really happy.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't want to come here and be like, I don't know any of the players. And but no, I heard his name a number of times, and he was doing a really, like, he was making a lot of plays.
That's awesome. Real still relevant and very humble at the time. We're like, man, so what's going through your mind when you made that amazing play? It's like, oh, just playing dodgeball. Like, oh, all right. Excuse us. But I mean, he didn't mean that in a mean way. He was just playing dodgeball, having a good time. But so I think you kind of mentioned some of the women. Were there any other teams or teams, countries, or women players that stood out to you?
I mean, I think the women overall played, like, Team Malaysia had an impressive women's team as well. Like, they're so, like, their body type, they're small, and like they just crawl up into like a little ball, and like they can block almost anything. And like I watched one of the girls just stretch for like 20 minutes, and I was like, if I bent that way, I would never get back up.
Like, I'm done.
And like just watching them, like that, like, a lot of the girls, even on Canada, like one of the girls, like they, you've seen the girls, like they lay back and like they just have that full bend. And I'm like, my knees are breaking at that point, like just watching them.
Yeah. I was able to do that when I was younger, but if I did that now, like you said, I'm not getting up.
Yeah, I'm not getting up either.
Just going to lay there forever and, yep.
And I mean, obviously there's lots of women on the U.S. team that stood out, and like the men's team. I just, I wanted to give like other teams some shout out and some
Some
love.
mention.
I didn't get to watch as much of Team Australia as I wanted to, but like I did see some, and they, like I said, that they did not give up, and I was very impressed by that.
The I think I might have asked Emily, but it was like, who on Team USA stood out, and it was like all of them because they're all phenomenal players. So naturally, you would expect all of them to be just amazing. But I did want to ask if you can recall from memory, Ashley Cook. She's been making quite the splash lately.
Smashly.
Smashly. Obviously, she got MVP.
Yeah.
Any idea why, other than just being Ashley? Like,
oh my God, she had some amazing plays throughout the tournament. I think I actually sent her the footage because I got it on tape for her. It was versus the Canadians, and she was she had just dodged a ball, and she was laying on her back, and they threw the ball at her, and she caught it as she's laying down on her back, and I was just blown away. You see the talent. I watched her, I've seen her at nationals. I saw her on the 1v1, and just seeing her in the game, she's just in the zone, and she just goes hard as can be. And watching her, I want to say, I don't even know who I could even compare her to. Maybe the Venus Williams of dodgeball. She's just very, very impressive.
That's incredible. Yeah, speaking about laying flat on your back with your knees exposed like that and then snagging a ball out of the air, I have to find that. I mean, there's so much footage I still got to go through and watch just myself. I heard that she had a hip catch. I don't know if you saw that maybe.
Oh yeah. She was turning and then caught it on the side. Oh man, so many of these players. It was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
I really wish, if I was making a team, I would pick probably the entire USA Dodgeball women's team over putting myself on a team because they were that good.
Yeah, there's no one on that lineup that you would ever want to face off against.
No.
Take lightly or
no way.
Would snooze on. And massive kudos to the what do you call it? The combine and for creating that team, for making that happen. That's a team I was, both men and women's, just super excited to see and watch assemble over the course of the year that it was first announced. So it's good to see that Team USA is producing, for lack of better words, and it's just utilizing the best players out there. And
I will say the one thing I will say about the USA team is I think that there's too many players on the USA team, both sides. I feel like a lot of players maybe didn't get the time, the play time that they should have, and
right.
There was just it was a stacked roster. How do you have so many players? There was a lot of players to choose from. It's hard to pick, and I almost feel like there was too many players.
Resource overload. I can definitely see that, especially when how many play? I'm terrible for asking this. How many players on the court? 6?
6.
Yeah, so you need to find generally who's hot, at least during bracket play. At that point, we're going to run with these 6 until the synergy's broken or until somebody's tired, or because once that groove is found, it's unstoppable, and it's really hard to do when you throw in 7, 8, 9, 10 people and try to figure out how to rotate them in. So I don't envy the coaches.
Yeah, I don't envy the coaches either. Perfect example. I'm going to give 2 different examples. The Canadians team, when the women play the Canadians team, Paige was in there, and she has that softball pitch, and so it's almost like a really good counter to the other 2, the twins having the softball pitch. Whereas in other games, she wasn't as present. And then the men's team, Vince played, I think, 1 game in the finals. He sat down, so somebody else Hashimoto, who was on fire the entire weekend, or I'm gonna totally screw people's names up. He's on Heat. I can't remember his name.
Isidro.
Perez. Isidro.
Yep.
I knew I was going to screw it up, and I talk to him all the time. I'm sorry, Isidro. Um, you know, he can whip that freaking foam ball like I've never seen. Him and Hashimoto, and like watching Vince, who is like everybody looks up to Vince and looks at Vince as like he's a leader in dodgeball. Watching him and Glenn sit on the sideline so these kids, these younger guys who are better at foam, can play. That to me said something. I was like, that's true leadership right there. That you're gonna step aside playing on the biggest stage, and like that was amazing to see. And like Kat and Emily, they were doing you know, a lot of the retrieving of the balls versus some of the other guys. Like the men's team didn't necessarily retrieve the balls; they had other guys like Xander and, you know, retrieving the balls. So, you know, just seeing the different teams and how the coaches did things was just really unique and impressive. I don't envy any of them.
Yeah, you have so many weapons, and you just got to figure out which combination is going to work the best. And I'm glad you mentioned Isidro, because I just have like the nerdiest comparison right now. It's like watching the Avengers movie. Like, you're so excited to watch, you know, Iron Man and Captain America, maybe the Hulk, and then you realize, oh wait, no, Thor's also in this. Oh wait a minute, so Star-Lord. Oh man, and you're just so excited, and it's the superpowers just keep getting thrown at you. Like, that's kind of how I saw both men's and women's. Like, you get excited because you know Kate Kong is going to do something amazing, or Katie Sanchez is going to just own everything. But then you also forget that there's so many other players as well, and you're just like, it's just overload. Exciting as a spectator. Again, probably harder for a coach, but I hope that you know, they have some good takeaways for how they're going to build Team USA next year, and maybe taper off that. I do want to say though, I think if this was held in a different country, probably wouldn't have had that many people, just because of the nature of travel and money and expenses. Yeah. But I wonder, well, it's in another country. I don't know if we're supposed to air it, but I wonder if that's going to change anything as well. So, but it's good to think about for sure for next time.
I think next year is in Mexico.
Yep.
Cancun, and actually,
I just said I wasn't sure if we're supposed to air that, so that's on you.
No, they announced it.
Oh, okay.
They announced it there. It's okay. I can say it. They announced it there.
I was like, I want Jake's wrath.
No. They announced it there.
Awesome.
One of the Geos was an alternate, and he didn't go.
Right.
And you know, it's, you know, like you said, it's time, it's money. You know, it's expensive to travel. Trust me, my credit cards will tell you it's expensive to travel.
Yeah, I mean, as an alternate, you know, it's one of those things where like they have other alternates before me. I can totally see why you would want to sit that out on a pure budgetary means, but yeah, I'm already saving money for Cancun. I'm going as long as the military lets me. I'm going. I kind of want to go back a little bit and talk about, so some of the things that Emily really made me happy about was the fact that she mentioned the stars on the floor that had the team names, the trailers. There's bottle service, which I totally would have been all over if I wasn't at the booth. What else did you see that was just like, that hasn't been talked about, that really impressed you, or just talk to the brand of WDBF that you can speak of from memory?
Well, first off, I'm going to go on the bottle service because that was impressive. The bottle service tickets were $50.
It's worth it.
I would have paid $50. I would have paid $50. I don't even drink that much, and I would pay $50. I was like, "What? That's how much that ticket costs?" I'm like, "I'd pay $50 to sit front row at Dodgeball. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I won't pay $50 to go sit, you know, in the sky, watch the Knicks play, but I will pay $50 to sit front row at Dodgeball.
Absolutely.
Any day of the week, especially with bottle service. What? Like, speaking of the bottle service, I will say that, you know, they really went out of their way to make sure our concession stand was as top level as they can get. They had like different types of alcohol, they had different types of drinks, they had tamales. Like, nice. When are you going to get a tamale at a sporting event? I was like, what? Tamale? Yes, please. You know?
Actually, was there any other international food that was brought? That's one thing we
No.
didn't really get to talk about is like the culture. Yeah, like I mean, seeing the other flags. Imagine hearing the other anthems. Were they played?
No other anthems were played.
Oh, maybe that's a
No,
host
but
thing.
there was the flags. The flags were all on display. There was like photo booths for the players. That was really cool. Then there was like interview setup, and like one of the cool things that they did during the live feed that I loved was after the games were played, they would try and grab some of the international players and talk to them on the live feed so that
Nice.
people could actually get to know more players around the world. And I didn't get to watch a lot of those, but when I was scrolling through to do my research for this podcast, I noticed that, and I was like, man, I really want to go back and like watch some of them and like know who these players are. And it was that I really liked that. I really thought that was a really awesome thing. The cameras weren't intrusive; they were up high and out of the way. Everything was communicated very well. I'm trying to think. Like the bleachers were really, the bleacher setup was really cool. I was like, we got bleachers in a studio. I'm like, this is legit.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember earlier you're saying like you were filming one game and kind of like looking at other games. I kind of had that. So I got to watch. I think it was Wednesday night. Again, thank you, David Tates, for your commentary and for Facebook Living for us. Yeah, so I had Tates' broadcasting on one screen, and I had like another feed or the YouTube feed on another monitor, and like 4 other tabs open. I was like, I just want to watch all of it. I don't know how I can do this, but I was able to focus on Tates because his commentary was hilarious. But yeah, I don't even know how it would have been. I just would have been just sensory overload. I want to watch all of the games. It was just, it looked from the comfort of my home, it looked like that was where you needed to be. If you had anything to do with dodgeball, you needed to be there, and I'm very envious of people that were.
Yeah. On that, with this watching courts, I was watching the Euros at work today also. They're gonna probably be done by the time this launches.
I saw that.
But
I saw the feeds.
yeah, I was posting about that because
That's what it was.
this is really interesting. So I didn't know that. Somebody else told me this because they were watching it, and you can actually, in the middle of the live stream, you can actually switch cameras on the one single feed. And I was like, I don't know how you do that, but I want to know because that is amazing. Like when one game ended, you could switch, you could pick a different court or a different court angle other than the main feed and go watch that without having to go to a different link.
That's cool. Who was so what was it? Was the Euro, not to veer off too much, but the Euros?
I believe they're in Italy right now, and it's all of like the European, like Austria, Ireland, England, like a whole Italy, like a whole bunch of like different European countries are all playing, the cloth ball. And so it's been on first thing in the morning for me because I'm on the East Coast. So I put it on at work. I'm like, I'm watching dodgeball first thing in the morning. This is great. The next 4 days are going to be amazing.
Nice. That was the coolest thing. Is like I've got dodgeball on right now. Like I wish life wasn't so busy because this would be my weekend. I would just be watching dodgeball nonstop. Like I'd be watching football, and I feel like that's coming closer and closer. There's always gonna be that one really awesome homie that's gonna stream for you, and as the production increases, so will how it's broadcast, and maybe we can finally get to a point where it's like Euros, where you can control what camera you're watching, so you're not just subject to one. But I mean, even now, it's still pretty awesome. I've got to figure out a better way to phrase this question, but it's one I'm always asking, and that is, what teams showed up and what teams, I guess, from a USA perspective, gave them the hardest times. So, like, obviously Malaysia, but were there any other, like, these guys are going to give us a hard time, or what did you see?
I want to say our neighbors to the south and the north both like put up really good fights.
Nice.
But the Canadians and the U.S., there's, you would think the rivalry being there's a lot of elite players on Team Mexico.
Right.
You would think that would be the team that would, like, both men and women would like really give like pushback. No, no, the Canadians and the USA team were, and I want to say it was probably a little bit more of the men's, like they were a little bit more chippy towards each other, and it made the game a lot interesting, you know, because you're like, wait, is something going to happen on the court besides dodgeball? Like, is there going to be some drama here that, you know, we got to watch out for? But like everybody kept themselves in check, but there was a little bit of chippiness, even in the crowd. Like when the fans were cheering, like there was a little bit of chippiness between, you know, people rooting for Canada and US, and I'm just like, all right, I've got my camera ready in case something happens.
Because like, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
It's funny. So chippiness, like back talk, banter.
Oh yeah, definitely some banter.
Not using the sh word, but
yeah. I've been very good trying not to curse. I only did it once, so yeah, there was definitely some smack talk. That's for sure.
Smack talk. There you go. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, some smack talk, and
that's funny.
There's almost a couple of situations, and I was like, all right, this is interesting.
Canada and USA. Huh? I mean, all the memes, all the jokes are like, oh, Canada is just gonna apologize and they'll be polite. But I guess now in the dodgeball court, huh? It's different.
Listen, and you know, I think Canada, like they're proving themselves. They've got some really good dodgeball players up there. You know, I watched. I want to say her name is Bree, number 4 on the women's Canadian team. She actually played at the WDA Worlds. So I had saw her from there, and she was really good. And like when I saw her again, I'm like, oh, I remember her. She's got a wicked arm. And so like seeing the Canadian players, like I actually like, because we don't get to see them very often, like seeing these international players, like I really loved that. And like I didn't know. I figured, you know, the U.S. team was just gonna like just dominate everybody. I thought they're just gonna walk in and, you know, like Golden State Warriors everybody and just start like trouncing, and that's what they did for the most part. But Canada and Malaysia, they gave them a run for their money every single time. And as you know, with the Malaysia one, Malaysia got the better in the end. But like it was close and it was tough, and I was very impressed because I got to watch a lot of amazing dodgeball.
So I was, you know, I look at, obviously we're biased, but I look at the lineups. I'm like, there's no way this team's going to lose. It's just not possible. And I don't know how much flack I'll get for saying this, but I'm almost glad it was not that they lost. I'm just glad it was tough, because I would hate for the U.S. to get complacent, because I feel the way Team USA has been built, again, possible flag coming, in the last couple of years feels like it's been sloppy, haphazard, and not with the way that it needed to be, like it did this year. So I would hate for the momentum to stop because we won. Like, you know that famous line, Bane, victory has defeated you?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing that freaks me out the most. So while I'm upset that USA didn't win, at least for the men's, I'm glad it's going to keep them hungry to keep playing, to practice, to find out what they can do to improve. And I imagine it's going to be the same with women's. I'm sure it was a battle all 3-4 days, and they're not going to be complacent either. I just don't want this to get complacent, in other words. I hope that we build off of this year, and next year we're treated to just even more intense dodgeball. And because it's like, for me, it's like the height of dodgeball is elite, but then it's just on a national stage. But I have no idea what to expect from European teams or from, you know, all these other international teams. I don't know what they bring to the table. Like, I have no idea if, you know, number 14 has a cannon. I have no idea if this tall dude is going to throw as hard as I think he is. Like, they're just like an unknown element to every new team that's brought in. And I kind of got into a little bit with Tasha with the WDA. She said, I forgot what team it was, but they brought this like weird style that maybe you might remember, where they hid behind each other, but they completely changed the way you'd expect a team to play. And that's the kind of like new exposure to the game that I'm really excited for when you bring in new entities. Do you remember that by any chance? Or
I don't remember that specifically, but I will add to the fact that I think watching the international teams play does change the game of dodgeball because they don't play the way we do.
Right.
And so your strategy has to be different. And like watching the international teams play was fascinating at both WDA and WDBF. You know, watching these teams, like you said, you don't know if this player is going to have a cannon, or why does Steve have a fan crew, or why does why is Jason have like the Australian team cheering for him? Like, what is it that makes these players so good? And like, having the twins on the women's Canadian teams that did the underarm pitch, like that, like just seeing the style and play, and like watching Malaysia, like it's just so impressive. And I was very impressed both international tournaments with the style of play, and I really would love to see more international play. I'm actually going to the British Open with
I saw that.
Yeah, I'm going with a fake USA team. I am unofficial team because I don't want anyone to give me crap. I made my own team. But I just to go play against some of these international players, I am never going to be good enough to make any USA team. No matter what, I will always not be good enough. There's far better players than me forever out there. I would be like last picked in line. But just knowing that I get to go play against some of these players and like see how they play, watch them hide behind other players, or watch them like chuck the ball just a little bit that it's no blocking. It's amazing. And I may get a little slack for this, but like a lot of teams were happy to get third place. The men's team was furious to get second. Furious. Like the look on their face was like they just wanted to kill people. And I saw that and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to see the most like disciplined Andrew Ketchum and most disciplined players next year that are all going to come hungry to try and win worlds because they are so mad that they got that close and they didn't get it.
So that's what I was saying when I was like, oh, I'm glad USA lost. Definitely not. Please don't take it that way. That's what I meant. Like, that's, I guess, the silver lining. If it was more eloquently put, it would have been silver lining is they're going to come back just with a vengeance. And it's going to be fun watching their journeys as they do so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. I hope I get to be on the USA marketing team next year so I can go to the USA Combine, because to watch these players gonna train again for this is gonna be insane.
That's awesome. I do. Speaking of Ketchum and the Combine, in his recap, well, it was actually the full interview of Ketchum. He had just come back from the Combine, so I was kind of picking his brain about it a little bit. But he had said, and this was the first time, and kudos to you, Ketchum, for having the prophecy, I guess. But he said, Eli Hashimoto, that kid is the future of dodgeball. And I was like, dude, you're the future of dodgeball. You're still a child in my eyes. And then to watch that kind of go full circle to Feed the Beast and hearing all about Elijah or Eli, that's awesome. Like it's pretty incredible how that happens. To go from hearing a name to actually meeting him in the South team interview that I did, to actually seeing him play in nationals, to actually seeing him being cheered and chanted even for Worlds. It's awesome to follow people along that journey. So again, I'm just really looking forward to what 2019 brings and what that Team USA looks like all around.
I'm gonna with that point, I'm gonna actually say I actually, watching him play, being I traveled to 2 of the South rounds, I was like, all right, I don't understand why they picked this guy. And I watched him at the Combine, and I didn't really like, maybe it was because he's so young. I was just like, I don't know. And then seeing him on the court at Worlds, I totally changed my opinion. I was like, why'd they pick him? I'm like, I don't get it. Like, how is he like? And then watching him, I was like, holy cow, now I see. I missed that. And like, I'm an outsider watching and I missed it.
Right.
And so seeing him like underestimate, like everyone in the audience, I was literally standing with my camera answering people. People were talking to Ashtar, and they were saying, "Oh my God, how old is that kid?" They're like, "He's 17." And then we're looking at Mike McGee, and they're like, "Oh my God, how old is he?" I'm like, "Not old enough to drink." Like these guys are insanely good, and they're so young. Like the OG panel you guys were talking about, wheels falling off. I wish I was young like them coming into the sport with the years ahead that, they're going to have the opportunities to play all over the world. Like we never had that. We never had that opportunity really. And that's just amazing.
It is. It's incredible to think about what it's like to come into dodgeball on this level where all this is already laid out, all the fights, all the feuding organizations have, for the most part, participated, and it's, we old people think this is the height of dodgeball, where new guys come in, they're going to basically think this is the standard. It's like, oh no. The standard was once you have an enclosure and some balls, you got a dodgeball tournament. Let's see who shows up. That's about it.
You're going to have some cones. That's where you don't cross. There's no line. You just, you be honest. And,
honor system, and maybe you'll have a ref, maybe you won't. Maybe he'll be drunk, maybe he won't. We don't know. Oh man! Speaking of OG panel, just a quick teaser. I've started reaching out to people from other regions in hopes of capturing those stories too. So it's definitely not something I'll keep saying this to them blue in the face or typing it, but this is not beholden to the West. Like the East has a story, the South, the North, the Northeast, Northwest.
If you need to know the South, I grew up in Florida, and I can tell you how docile and empty the dodgeball scene was there.
Awesome. We can definitely compare notes. That was a long-winded invitation to you being on it, so perfect.
Well, hey, then there's a teaser because I'm going to be on another one with you relatively soon. I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, so let's. It's been really hard not to just delve, and I keep saying this, but I mean it too. It's like, hey, I want you to talk about dodgeball, but recap and only recap. And next thing you know, I have a full-on standalone interview with Brenda Kramer because I just can't help myself. And I know I definitely want to do that with Emily, but yeah, absolutely want to do that with you as well. And man, I'm just holding back the questions. But
let me tell you, that Brenda Kramer one was probably one of my favorite ones. She gave so much insight on dodgeball, and I could tell you, just you can ask me questions like that, like watching the teams play and how they, I would like to say, practice and not practice. Hers was very insightful.
Yeah, she when I was done recording that, I just like sat here in this booth and I was just like the 1,000-yard stare of just like, wow, I just got hit with a sense of motivation and an appeal to being a better person that I haven't felt in a long time. And I that, again, I don't want to sound like an a-hole, but like I usually don't have a hard time finding that motivation. It's usually around me pretty easily. But there's just something about that just really brought out, I don't know, something like we have a fitness group now because of that. Like that kind of inspired that whole thing. And
I'm part of that fitness group. Her and Miles.
Yeah.
Trying to like help the dodgeball community with that, and that's so like light years beyond what anyone could expect from people who are personal trainers to like just go above and beyond to help your fellow dodgeballer.
Oh, that's
like
incredible.
That's just amazing.
Not only that, just like your fellow human being too, and that's for all the flack that dodgeball community can get, because any family is going to have its dysfunction here or there, but like multiply that by like 2,000, you're going to have fights, you're going to have arguments, but I think at the end of the day, people will come together and they'll elevate you, and you'll find the support that you need. And I'm excited to see what evolves from that, just from people stepping up because they want to get better, they want to put the work in, and people like Brenda and people like Miles are just there to help. It's really inspiring. So shout out to you guys for that if you're listening. Definitely need to have them all on the podcast again. I think that's all I've got though for WDBF. Unless you've got anything else that we might have glossed over.
No, I'm sure that you and I will have a very fun, long conversation, and I will probably sing lots of praises for the dodgeball community because the dodgeball community has been so good to me in my filming. So I'm pretty excited for our podcast that we're going to do soon.
Me too. Yeah, I definitely want to take my time and just focus on that. So I guess with that, man, thank you so much for hopping on and helping me recap again, just to kind of round out the full experience of WDBF, and definitely appreciate it.
Anytime, and can't wait for the next one, and the listeners, if they have any questions for that next one, I'm sure you'll have a post up and be ready for it.
Oh, for sure. All right, so go ahead and end the interview there. Alrighty, so that was a bit of a recap of the WDBF World's Championship Tournament that took place quite a few weeks ago at this point. Again, so sorry for the delay, but I just could not cover it. So Emily, thank you so much for hopping on. Dominic, thank you so much for hopping on as well and helping me put this together. To the guys that I reached out to initially to help me put this together, I'm so sorry for not being able to coordinate with you guys and make this happen. But I'm honestly kind of happy to talk to Dominic finally. As I mentioned when we were talking earlier, this is something I've been wanting to do for a while. And boy, I cannot wait to actually talk to him separately in an interview, as well as Emily. I think that's just going to be par for the course now. If you come on and you are a panelist, be prepared to be interviewed, because there's a ton of people in previous panels that I really want to interview for season 3. So on that note, just going to kind of leave it at that. Hope everybody has a great rest of your evening, great rest of your week, and we'll catch you next time. This is not going to be the easiest thing to say, but I wanted to at least take a quick moment and just offer my sincerest condolences to the Cushing family and to those friends and family that were closest to him. I would just be completely dishonest if I did not address this in some way, given everything that's gone on in the last 3 weeks. I definitely wanted to address it sooner, but I wasn't sure how. So it just sucks. It's incredibly tragic to see what happened, and especially as the details continue to unfold. And it's just one of those things that really kind of reminds you about what matters most in life, and that's just your loved ones. And if I may be so bold, I would love to address just how supportive the dodgeball community has been. And I almost mentioned this earlier when I was talking with Dominic about how the community can still show what it's best at. And to see people come together and address this and offer their thoughts and prayers and their support, especially to Rob, for all that's gone on with him, has been what I feel is what really does make this community a community. We may have our variances and whatever, not going to get into that, but when it really matters most, we will come together and we will be a family for each other. And again, I just wanted to just kind of address that as well. Again, it's incredibly sad. And while I didn't know Patrick personally, I'm envious of those that did, because obviously they're saying so many incredible things about him. He really seemed like an awesome person, and it's one of those things where, like, you know this person from familiarity, you know him because you've faced off against him across the court, him or her, and to just lose somebody even in that proximity is tragic. And without being too long-winded, again, I just wanted to offer my thoughts and my condolences just towards that, and just know that it's a loss that I think everyone has felt, is feeling, but as long as we continue to support each other, we'll get through it, and we'll do our best to honor him and his passion for the sport and the legacy that he is no doubt leaving behind. So just wanted to address that.